Have you ever encountered a hurdle with launching or growing your business? Listen, there are two things that run a business, the back end and your soft skills.
Telling you right now, if these aren't in place, you'll lose clients and you'll lose money. You don't want that? Well, you're in the right place.
Hey, I'm Dana.
Hey, I'm Sarah.
We're your hosts of the Entrepreneur Encounter, and we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes glance into our businesses, give you genuine feedback, tips and tricks, plus occasionally bring on guests that care about supporting you to grow your business organically and nurturing authentic relationships. Are you ready? Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that may not seem like it should be at the top of the entrepreneur business owner list of things to focus on, but it really should be. It's something that's near and dear to my heart and many of my entrepreneur friends, and that's our health, especially for busy entrepreneurs who wear a million hats. Like, how do you take the time to prioritize your well-being without sacrificing your business goals? And that's where our guest today comes in, Aimee, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about how she specializes in health and wellness, specifically helping busy professionals create sustainable and personalized health plans. So welcome, Aimee.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Can you take a few minutes and kind of just share with us a little bit about how you got started, what inspired Vibrance Nutrition, and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, I'm fairly unique in that I got started when I was about 12 years old. Not many people can say that. When I was a girl, I randomly found a book in a bookstore, Walden Books, for those of you in North America who may remember. It was called 101 Ways to Save the Animals. And what 12-year-old girl doesn't want to do her part to save the animals? I thought it was, about dolphin safe tuna and saving the rainforest. But this book was written by the founder of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. So I was thrown into the startling education, factory farms and fur farms and animal testing for cosmetics and whatnot. It was life-changing for me. I immediately became an animal rights activist. And after about a year, I realized I could not be in integrity with my values if I continued to eat meat. So I decided to become a vegetarian. My parents were kind of like, yeah, we'll see how long this phase lasts.
Like most parents.
Exactly. My great-grandmother and another family member were concerned about my health, and they were concerned that I would be protein deficient and anemic. And my 12-year-old logic thought, well, there's a whole, India is a subcontinent of vegetarians, because that's how much I knew about India. And they're fine, so it's got to be okay. And I went to the library and I started looking up vegetarian nutrition. And this was my foray into this world, because the conversation of food as it relates to our health was never a conversation that happened in our household. So when I began doing the studying to understand and to justify my position from a nutrition standpoint to my family members, I came face to face with this awareness that everything we eat has the impact to enhance our health or detract from our health. And it felt like finding Indiana Jones, the fountain of youth, right? Felt like finding this panacea to ease all of the suffering in the world, to end heart disease, I believed, completely eradicate cancer. And obviously the problem was that nobody knew about it. So I did a lot of studying on nutrition as it pertained to vegetarians. And I was reading books that justified the position of a vegetarian diet. But while I am no longer a vegetarian, that was the foray into this world. I never have lost the passion and the curiosity and the drive to learn more and more about how food impacts our health. And over the last 30 years, it's honestly just gotten more fascinating. So I knew immediately what I wanted to do by the time I was 15. I've obtained 2 degrees in nutrition, started my private practice in 2004, and have been working as a health coach and nutritionist since then.
Well, first, I just looked at time frame. Happy 20th anniversary of being in business.
Thank you so much.
Also, kudos. I know we talked about my daughter is hanging out with us in the background for our listeners that are really concerned. But I love how even at such a young age, you were strong-willed enough to dive into it. And even though they had concerns, you researched to almost ease their concerns with making sure you were adequately getting all of your macros and everything else that was needed. I love that. You've always had an entrepreneur spirit is what I'm hearing. And it just happened with like, this is definitely your calling, so to speak, of health and wellness and like treating your body right.
Absolutely. It truly is a calling for me. I don't know what else I would do in my life if I was not doing this. And that I think is part of the reason why I've been around for 20 years, because it still fuels me. It still feeds me. I still get incredibly excited, honestly, more so now that I have the diversity of backgrounds with different people I've worked with. Each time someone comes to me and they need support, I'm thrilled to be able to be a guide and a knowledgeable support system for them to help them figure out how to get the results they want so they have the energy and the vitality to do the things they want to do with their life. That's the whole reason for this. We eat well so that we can live life on our terms for as long as possible. It's not glamorous and sexy to do this, but the end result is worth the rather tedious and sometimes boring necessities. But I do want to make it fun and exciting. And I am a foodie first, so I don't believe in eating boring food.
You and one of my close friends, Beth, would get along so well because she is on this food journey herself and she is working with a coach of some sort. And it's really moving her into a space of trying new foods. Because when I first met her, it was not bland. Like she'd still season things, but like vegetables and textures was a problem for her. Or it still is, but she's getting better. So like within the last month, she's had a spinach and strawberry salad, which was never even an option. She cried when she ate it.
Right?
She cried happy tears, but she cried like so overcome with like, oh my goodness, I'm doing these things. Yesterday, I think it was, she had avocado for the first time, like on her toast. So like she's looking for fun, delicious ways to incorporate these foods that she never would have tried even a year ago. So let's start with like a common struggle. I'm going to call myself out here in full transparency is the feeling of overwhelm, which leads to neglecting our health because we're overwhelmed with having to track things or overwhelmed with knowing what to eat, when to eat, even say how to eat. So how do you help your clients adapt healthy habits into their already jam-packed schedules?
Do you mind if I take advantage of the fact that you've called yourself out to answer this question?
Sure.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
So your morning has started in a way you didn't expect. And if you are like most entrepreneurs, things have gone a little bit sideways. You're a bit delayed in what you thought you could accomplish by this time of the day. It's really easy when things don't go exactly to plan to say, oh, well, I don't have time to exercise today. I don't have time to go grocery shopping to make dinner today, and to just let that be the end of the story. When we make that decision, I don't have whatever resource you don't have, we stop the conversation and we prevent ourselves from learning to be resilient and adaptable. Well, instead, I want to ask you, what is one thing you can still do to remind yourself, to tell yourself, to affirm to yourself that taking care of my body and my health is important, even with the day set up as it is?
I want to approach this from two different ways because normally the planner in me is like, well, I should have planned ahead and had like healthy snacks on hand or whatever the case may be. So one, it'll be my reminder to next time I go to the store, plan for a day where life is not going the way my calendar says it should go. But then in the moment, so yesterday, for instance, I don't know how I got off track, but I did not have lunch. So instead of, I didn't have time to like make a full macro, full lunch or whatever, because that's where I'm focused on right now is making sure I get enough protein and all the things. that was not happening. It was too close to dinner and I didn't want to completely mess up that meal. So I ended up, my resilience thing to stick to that mindset, because I do have goals that I'm trying to reach, is I made me a protein smoothie instead. And that was enough. I wasn't ravenous by dinner. And I just sipped on that for like an hour so that it lasted long enough for me to make it to dinner.
That's perfect. Because if you had been of the mentality, which some people are, of, oh, I'm going to tough it out and wait till dinner. Oh, I missed lunch. Well, let me just save those calories and then I can have dinner. That often ends up being a setup for people, because by time they go that extra hour, 2 hours beyond what they normally would have, and they step into dinner, they're famished. If they're cooking for themselves, they're snacking while they're cooking dinner. And then by time they're sitting down to the table, they've already consumed enough food that they're not that hungry. They've snacked their way through the prep process, but then they feel kind of obligated to eat dinner anyway because you're sitting with your family. Then by time dinner is ready, they often end up eating more than they would want to, or make poor choices if they're going out. If we push our body past a certain point, the logical brain is taking a nap, and it is our primitive biological brain that takes over. It doesn't matter how educated you are. It doesn't matter how well you plan. If your blood sugar is very low and you are famished, you will not make the best choices. Very, very few humans have that superpower in that situation. Your body, your cells are going to take over and they'll be like, my blood sugar's low. I need to get my blood sugar up. Boy, that pizza looks great. Let's do that. Let's get Thai food tonight. I want noodles. What is going to bring your blood sugar up quickly? It's the carbs. Let's lean into that. And for a lot of the demographic that I work with, they need to be very strategic about their carbohydrate intake. And that is a situation where the strategy goes out the window and ends up not fulfilling their ultimate. So your plan to have a smoothie, that's great. That's exactly the kind of idea that we would come up with in a session when something like that happened. And also your thought, well, next time I'm going to have snacks in the car. That center console of your car is the perfect storage place for non-perishable snacks, like beef jerky and meat sticks and single serving packages of nuts, dried fruit, things like that that you can keep in that center console. So if you're stuck in traffic or you get delayed and you start to get hungry, you don't put yourself in that position where you get yourself in trouble.
I feel like that's where, if you're an entrepreneur that's on the road a lot, that is the biggest piece of advice that you can have, is have stuff in your center console. Because when I first started really like getting back on track post babies, I have to travel every other weekend to take my boys to Statesville. Like, it's their dad's turn. We have shared custody. And I always make sure my kids have snacks, but I do neglect, like, well, I will just tough it out. And I know myself way too well. That is not going to happen. So I always end up stopping on the way back because it's like 5 o'clock. I don't want to wait till 6 to get home and then start cooking. So I'm like, let's just get something. But it's fast food. So it's fried, it's greasy. Yes, it tastes delicious, but like, I know I'm going to regret it later.
Yeah.
And it's always a burger and fries or chicken tenders and fries, something that I don't need to be eating multiple times a month.
Right. I think that's something that I see very commonly in moms, entrepreneurial or not. They're so busy thinking about their children and preparing for what their child needs that they neglect to take care of themselves. It's called habit stacking, right? Which I'm sure many of the listeners have heard of, where you can take a habit that you're wanting to acquire and connect it to a habit you already do. If you are in the habit of making lunches for the kids, you make yourself a snack to take on the road. You make yourself your own lunch for work so that you don't go out to a restaurant and eat during your lunch hour rather than eat something healthy at the cafeteria or in your office. Make yourself one of your children in this circumstance. If you have 2 kids, think about making lunch for 3 kids.
I love that mindset shift.
Yeah, it's all about finding the ways to make it easier to implement so it becomes intuitive faster.
Hey there, listeners. Ever feel like you're struggling to connect with customers or lead your team effectively? That's where soft skills come in.
Entrepreneur Encounter isn't just another podcast. We're a community dedicated to helping early stage entrepreneurs like you master the soft skills that make or break a business.
Technical skills are important, but without communication, collaboration, and confidence, your business might never get off the ground to the next level.
In our membership, Dana and I share actionable insights and tips to help you nurture the soft skills you need to thrive.
Give you access to bonus content, workshops, and a network of like-minded entrepreneurs who are all on the same journey.
We'll teach you how to boost your confidence,
Become a leader who inspires and motivates your team,
navigate conflict like a pro,
to resolve disagreements without drama and build stronger relationships,
communicate clearly and concisely, get your message across, build trust, and close the deal.
If you're ready to take your business to the next level, join the circle by clicking the link in the show notes. I am familiar with habit stacking, but I typically do it with my step count. So like you mentioned brushing teeth. When I'm brushing my teeth, I will step from side to side to get my steps, like just extra steps in. Or if I'm talking on the phone and it's not where my face has to be seen, like a client meeting, I'm walking around my house. If I can do so. But I've never really thought about that shift with, I'm already in the habit of, obviously I'm not going to let my kids starve. So I have to make them lunch. So I need to make myself something at the same time, or make something like the snack for later type thing. I love that.
I think it's a little peculiar to me as well that, you're like, well, I'm not going to let my kids starve, but you don't think that about yourself.
True. Which when I first started my business back in 2020, one of the first things that I heard from a fellow entrepreneur that I randomly stumbled upon, she had created this journal to like create tasks. For me, I like to write things down. And her suggestion was like, write yourself in your tracker like you are your own client. That way, your main marketing tasks or growth tasks or whatever you need to get the needle moving happens because you're treating yourself, your business, like it's your client. And you give it the same amount of passion and dedication that you do your clients. So that same mindset could be for yourself as well, like treating you like a kid.
Yeah. And if you are overwhelmed, stepping into something as big as scheduling time for yourself may also feel impossible. In which case, like we need to break it down into even smaller chunks. It's really difficult to appreciate how the tiny little shifts accumulate over the course of a quarter, a year, 5 years. But this is really how I believe we can make the most effective and impactful changes, is not by the glamorous 30-day overhaul or the 2 weeks at the detox camp in Mexico, but it's the tiny little shifts like I'm going to set Amazon Prime to deliver each month a set of non-perishable snacks that are aligned with my health goals so that I never run out and there's always something in my car with me. And what I would do is like, I would take the package off the porch and put it in the trunk of my car. It never got into my house because if it goes into my house, I'm going to forget to put it in the car. So it goes directly in the car.
Love that.
Yeah.
And that seems obvious, but I am the person, I'm going to take it into my house and then it probably never goes into my car.
Well, after about 3, 4, 5 months of doing that, I got a little wise on myself and decided to just put it straight in the car.
I love that. So that's one key area I think that entrepreneurs should focus on. But are there other areas, like even just 2 more areas that you recommend entrepreneurs focus on for a bigger impact, even if they are tiny habits?
Yeah. So in addition to tiny habits, and when I say tiny habits, what that means for you is what is something that is small enough that you could do it daily or weekly and it doesn't feel overwhelming. Maybe it even feels stupidly easy. It feels so easy you want to dismiss it. It is still important. And I would encourage you to actually start there because what that does is it isn't necessarily that always having, for example, those snacks in the car. are the key to your success long term, but it teaches you that you can follow through. It teaches you that you can be consistent. So when you make the habit or the change small enough that you can sustain it, you build your own belief in your ability to take on larger changes down the road. There is, of course, this cumulative effect of tiny changes, but there's also this powerful impact, particularly if this is something you have tried to do over and over again for years and not been successful. It is imperative to re-teach yourself about what you could accomplish. And having that achievement of being able to consistently follow through on small agreements with yourself builds that empowerment, builds that belief in yourself to perhaps do larger things down the road, like carve out 30 minutes in your calendar 3 days a week to go for a walk or do some exercise or do some meal prep. So that way you are eating more aligned to how you want to eat. So, and habit stacking can help us achieve that, right? By making that connection between what we're already doing and adding something on. And then the third thing that I think is super important is regular reflection. It's really easy to tick the boxes and not go back and reflect and say, well, is this actually working? Oh, well, is this the level that I need to do this at? Or do I need to upgrade because I've mastered this and now it's time to go a step further? Unless we stop and reflect, we can't fully know why something is not working if it's not working. And so we deny ourselves the opportunity to course correct. And this is one of the things that I feel that with nutrition coaching specifically is so valuable, is that our meetings are often a reflection point for the client. Like, how have things gone? What's gone well? What hasn't gone well? Let's take a look at that and figure out what's going on. Was it a recommendation that's not realistic? Was there an obstacle that came up that we didn't foresee? Was there something else? Do we need to revisit this goal and make it into something that's more applicable? Or do we just need to try again? Or, well, great, that was a success. Does it feel like a solid success and we can move on? Or do we still want to practice a little bit more and grind in that habit a little bit further? So without the regular reflection, we don't have an opportunity to learn how to navigate the world and the chaos that it inherently comes with, because we're not stopping to see, how could I make this better? How can I ensure that whatever happened last week that derailed me doesn't happen again? So the reflection point is an opportunity to celebrate your successes and to strategize on how to improve things that don't go so well. And it's something I recommend people do at least once a week or every 10 days. You get past 2 or 3 weeks, you start to forget what didn't go right, or you're like, well, forget it, it didn't work anyway, and you kind of throw in the towel, or you have like, well, Monday I'm going to start all over again, but you haven't fully reflected on how it didn't work last time, and you're not thinking about how to prevent it from happening in the future. So
I feel like I need a daily reflection because I use an app called MyFitnessPal to track my food for my calories and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes at the end of the day, I'm like going back and trying to put in because I didn't do it in real time. And I'm like, what exactly did I eat today?
Yes.
And sometimes I don't remember, because I break mine down by ingredient sometimes because my meal is not already in the app. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, my sandwich had this, and this on it, but did I miss an ingredient? Like, I try to go in order, and sometimes I feel like I'm forgetting something or I don't exactly remember how much. So a daily reflection, sometimes I feel like it's
No, that's a really wonderful idea. And in the productivity world, they talk a lot about having a morning ritual and an evening ritual where you start the day and you think about, okay, what are my intentions? How do I want this day to go? What are the 3 things that I need to make sure to accomplish today? And then at the end of the day, kind of having a recap of what worked well, what didn't work so well, what can I do or perhaps not do? What do I need to let go of to be more successful with my goal? With regards to tracking in MyFitnessPal, I use Chronometer. Have you ever heard of Chronometer?
I have not.
Chronometer is a nutritionist's dream. So they're a small Canadian company, absolutely fabulous. They focus more on the micronutrients rather than just keeping things about macros and calories. So from a nutrition standpoint, in terms of making sure that my clients are as healthy as they can be, it allows me to assess whether or not they're getting all of the vitamins and minerals that they need. And Chronometer draws from like the USDA database and the NCC database, and I don't remember what that acronym stands for. So it quantifies like up to 70 different nutrients available in food. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And
for listeners that can't see my face, I just made a big face. I didn't realize.
When you put a food that is not in the database in Chronometer, they will have you take a picture of the label as well as the nutrition facts. And then there is someone on staff on the back end who fact checks that before it's released to everybody so that the data is accurate, which is something that MyFitnessPal doesn't do. So you have like 27 different user entries for a Fairlife protein shake and all the numbers, there's discrepancies between all of them. And that can add up over the course of a day or over the course of a month, the accuracy of the reporting. So Chronometer is amazing. Dana, I'll send you the link and you can.
I was going to say, I will make sure to find that and put it in our show notes, everyone. Yeah. That's perfect. Well, I think that is a great final tip is Chronometer. And make sure I spell that correctly. Aimee, thank you for sharing these amazing tips. I feel somewhat validated. I also feel somewhat called out in a good way. I think overall, our goal of inspiring busy entrepreneurs, they can prioritize their health, even with limited time. The tiny habit stacking and tiny mind shifts can lead to those big goals and impacts. So for our listeners tuning in at any point, if they're interested in learning more about the services that you provide or how to have that accountability partner, how can they find you?
I am available on the internet at Vibrance Nutrition. That's VIBRANCE, not vibrant with a T. And I also have my own podcast called Blasphemous Nutrition. I get a little salty in my talk. I get a little sassy, but I present a very nuanced take on hot topics in nutrition. And because I live in the world of nuance, everything I say offends somebody somewhere. And hence it is blasphemous.
I love it.
I'm also on Instagram at Vibrance Nutrition as well. If people just want to follow for a bit and learn more about how I work with people and how I kind of approach nutrition.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to have all of those links in our show notes. So for those that are interested and want to have more information on Aimee's approach and to learn how she can help you reach your goals, definitely check out in the show notes. When you reach out to her, tell her that you heard about her from us. And until next time, bye.
Bye.